Hi, I've finished off most of the dashboard here. As you can see, we have a bunch of items here on the side. I've got a water temperature gauge there, oil temperature gauge, what pressure, speedometer, odometer, mileage marker, warning lights, shift light, all that good stuff. I also put some texture on the background here and a shift indicator. So that's looking pretty good. I think it's going pretty good. So that's an extra spot I have for like an AFR gauge or something, but nothing too exciting. So we're going to start exporting items now. One of the important things you see over on the right hand side is our grouping of items. I've tried to keep things a little organized as far as like what's going on each layer as we're going to be exporting these. It's so you can basically turn them on and off and easily see what parts are going on there. So this is our lights off mode, and we're going to export this first. This is our lights on, so you can see nicely done yellow, and there's our white. As you can see, I'm exporting just the outlines here, not actually exporting the carbon, just the little texture with Control Alt Shift. And we want to see if it's selection area, we're going to have it like that. But if selection only, you want to make sure it's like that so we just have the lines. And we're going to our GARW because we're using the GARW as a preview. So we have an images folder, and I'm just going to name it tack markers lit.png. And let's go in our folder, make sure it looks good. There it is, looks good. Only the outline. So let's turn on our other layer. We got to turn off the carbon background. Still have that gray. There you go. And let's do it again. Control Alt Shift S. Looks good. Selection only. Export. And we can name it tack markers lit.png. We're using snake case here, which is just a nice thing I like using for file names. Snake case with underscores. And we can do some other things like we can export the shift indicator. And we'll get into more of this later, but we're just going to do the background right here. So let's do the same thing. And looks good. We'll name it shift indicator bkg.ping. And so on and so forth. We can do our drop shadow for our tack line. We can do our actual name, but like you get the idea. Here I'm doing the drop shadow. And then I'm going to do the next one. Yep. Same thing. I like to keep the names clear like that. And then we can do our little center in there. Still there, looks good. One of the things you have to keep in mind when you're exporting things is that these objects with drop shadows and like little text effects are going to be a little wider than the original specs. So when we're putting these things actually on the page, we're going to have to compensate for that. But you get the idea. Right here, I have the actual outlined mask here, so we can actually do those pretty looking line gauges. So this is actually, you can see how they're all masks. That on the lower right, we're not masking because it doesn't need it, but the other items do because we're going to have squares go on there. And I'll show you that later video, how we do these. And oh yeah, I'm going to do the carbon here. So So here I'm turning off the speedometer items. I'm going to export the carbon texture background of the gauge. So turn off the numbers and lines, and then I have my background and the speedometer information. So we can click on our tack lights off there and a speedometer. You can also just use your mouse on there and click, and then Control Alt Shift S. There we go. Looks good. Export. Give it a name. I feel like we've covered most of the basics of exporting PNG files from our Affinity Draw document. We have a whole bunch of extra ones like the dimmed items here, like the door open, seatbelt, battery. I think that's well covered. I think you can figure it out. I think we should start on actually using Visual Studio Code and the GARW preview apps so we can actually have something working. So, see you next video.